So thank you, as I say, for joining this morning. The first event in the Upstream Battle Marine Litter Art Competition. My name's Joe. I'm here from Keep Scotland Beautiful, and I'm organising the project this morning. And I'm also delighted to welcome Gail McGregor, who's joined us all the way from Skye, who will be telling us all about her fabulous work, the climate change, the plastic age, which will give you some amazing ideas and inspiration for your projects. So I'm just going to quickly give you a bit of an overview of what you've got to do for the project. So remember that there are four main parts to the art competition project. Firstly, you're going to investigate litter in your school and local area. So that might be by completing an Upstream Battle litter survey, maybe a litter pick if you're teachers and you've got adults to help you with that. And also then look at mapping your source to sea pathway. So remember that source to sea litter is what we call litter that starts on land and ends up in the sea in the marine environment. That's exactly what this project is all about, is thinking about the journey that litter takes from land to sea and how we can stop that and therefore protect our seas and oceans and water environments. Then you've got a quick activity to pledge your actions. So this is a class activity or a group activity, having a think about what actions you could take in your school or in your local area to stop litter entering the River Tay in the first place. And then you're going to use that information that you've gathered to create your artwork masterpiece. Okay. And this could be a sculpture, a painting, a video. It's really up to you, whatever you want to do to demonstrate your findings and your ideas to stopping source to sea litter. So you can see I've taken an example here. This is a whale sculpture in Bruges. And I'm not expecting to make anything quite this epic, but this is a lovely example of a sculpture that has been made out of plastic. What I do have, though, is a couple of ideas and inspiration from previous competitions that might give you an idea. So again, there's an opportunity you can make a video like this school here, or some models or sculptures, or even this school here that just created something on their school playground and then took a photo of it, and that was their entry. This is an actual a book made out of a cardboard fish that tells the story of this school. So that's a bit of information about the competition itself. I'm now delighted to hand over to Gail, who will be taking us through her work, and then we'll come back for some, as I say, some questions at the end. Please do remember to use the chat to put any comments in or any questions. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat, and I can pose any questions to Gail as we go through. So thank you very much for joining us, as I say, all the way from Skye, Gail. So I'll hand over to you to go through your work.
Hi, everyone. As Joe said, I'm Gail McGregor, and I created a sculpture called Climate Change, the Plastic Age. I must apologise that I'm actually not in my studio because the Wi-Fi and internet on Skye is terrible. So I've had to come up into my office. So sorry about that. I think it'd have been more fascinating to actually be downstairs, but never mind, hey ho. Can you please change to slide 2, Joe? I am so glad that you're all here, and more importantly, to share with you my story, my motivation on why and how I created a life-size sculpture from beach plastic and its tour around Scotland, including COP26. So what is my story? This is where I live. The top left-hand corner, you'll see some houses at the very, very top, and I live there. And this is the reason why I want to tell you about my story. Can you please change to slide 6? I am an artist whose work ranges from textiles, handmade paper, to weaving, painting and sculpture. And if you look at the top left-hand corner, you'll see that there's a sculpture that, no, you can see, well, it's a cross between textiles and it's actually made of all the plastics that were sent to us, my family, during lockdown via Amazon, and I was just appalled at the amount of plastics that came, and I used the textures of the ice and waters that surrounds me, and I made this large piece of work. Then in the middle, it's actually made of hundreds of sheets of handmade paper that I've glued together to make, which is called a sea flower. And then the top right hand is an image that's from the view of my studio, and that is made up of thousands of tiny pieces of old magazines and old newspapers that were donated to me and recycled on this image. So I'm very much into recycling and reusing things that you would otherwise put in your bin. And I've loved making art right from primary school through to secondary, and then when I left and I went to art school, and I've always been really excited and very keen about expressing myself and the way I think and what's happening in the world. It's kind of part of my life. Please change to slide 7. Thank you. My artwork has been inspired by the landscapes of Skye. And if you look at the 3 images, you'll see the seasonal changes. What I find when I go for lovely walks, I love all the beautiful vegetation, like wildflowers, plants. I'm very fortunate to see lots of sea life, like otters and seals and dolphins and basket sharks. But I also, for me, love to collect objects that I find on coastal and woodland walks, such as shells and leaves and pine cones. And Skye has this awe-inspiring and fascinating landscape, as you can see from the 3 images that I've shown you, from the clouds, the rocks, and the dramatic coastlines, and the famous, as you can see, the Cullen Mountains. Can you please change slide, Joe? I'm wondering, does anybody want to ask any questions? That's okay. I'm sure you'll have plenty to come later on. Next slide, please. My husband and I moved to the island of Skye 8 years ago to be surrounded by the breathtaking scenery, gorgeous coastlines, and the dreary, misty mornings the island of Skye could offer. I love beachcombing. We both love walking, especially along the coastline. So it was inevitable that my husband and I moved as close as we could to this. But when I strolled down to our local beach, I was absolutely horrified at all the marine debris and litter that I found. I could not believe how much rubbish was there. And so, instead of putting all this rubbish into the recycle bin, I thought I must turn something ugly and negative into something positive. I had to spread the word. I had to let everybody know. So I made the decision that every day I went down to my beach with my backpack and I beach combed. Please change slide. Can you believe that this is what I collected in just a few hours? So I'm wondering, when you go around all your playgrounds and your parks and you go around your local area, what you'll be finding. It will be interesting to see. Have you ever beachcombed?
Would you like to put your answers in the chat, everyone, if you've done any beach combing or beach clearing before in your local area, and maybe say whereabouts it was? And I'll also take this opportunity to say apologies about Gail having to ask me to move the slides along. Unfortunately, her internet on Skye doesn't quite handle sharing the slides, so that's what I'm doing. So we've got a few answers. Oh, lots of answers. We've got some groups going out in East Haven and also in Aberdour, so fabulous. Lochleven. So yeah, lots of groups have gone out already. Oh, Arisaig, fabulous.
Oh, wow. It's really good news. Well done, guys. That's really wonderful. And of course, this will help you when you're doing your project. That would be lovely. So why do you think this is important?
Do you want to pop your answers in the chat again? Oh, so Miss Baird's class say that the children beachcomb on their holidays as well. That's fantastic.
Oh, wow, fantastic.
So pop your answer in the chat. Why do you think beachcombing is important? What were you what were you achieving when we go and do beachcombing or beach clearing? Oh yeah, so lots of people saying about the animals. That's fantastic. So protecting the animals and the wildlife that we find in these places, so they don't eat it and it doesn't damage them when they ingest it, they swallow it. Absolutely. Any other ideas? Got a few people typing, so we'll wait to see. I've got some other ideas about sea creatures not getting stuck in nets, for example, and that we want to stop climate change. Fantastic. Abalona Palmer, you're saying about protecting our planet from greenhouse gases. That's a really good point. Of
Oh,
course,
that's fantastic.
a lot of the materials that we find on beaches are made of plastic, and we have to use oil to make plastic. And therefore, when we produce plastic, it releases greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Again, Mrs. Baird's class is saying about helping the coral and the marine life. This is really good ideas.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well done, guys. Fantastic. Thank you, Joe. So when I got home from beachcombing, like what you guys have been saying, when you've done the exact same, I separated litter into different sizes and colours, from plastic bottles, polystyrene foam, toys, bottle caps, food wrappers, combs, flip-flops, paintbrushes, light bulbs, grocery bags, beverage bottles, damaged fishing nets and ropes, which found their way from all of the corners of the world to the beaches of Skye. Please change slide, Joe. Thus, the seed of my idea had been sown to make climate change the plastic age. In the beginning, it took a few months to collect all the pieces together, and I wanted to create a piece of artwork that highlighted the global challenges affecting the world's oceans, seas, and coastline today, just what you've mentioned a few minutes ago. Please change slide, Joe. I hope this is not too blurred, because I downloaded this image from the internet, and I'm wondering, on your journey to school today, or even in the playground, did you notice any rubbish?
So again, pop your answers in the chat, everyone. We've talked about cleaning up the beaches and protect marine animals. So has anybody seen any, even if it's in the playground or in the local area on your way to school? As Bear's class saying we get some, but not as much as in the picture. Yes, well, luckily, as Gail said, that's not a photo that we've received from Eco Schools. That's one that's been downloaded. So that's a very sad sight to see that amount of litter. We've got a few comments about there being specific types of litter, such as juice cans and crisp packets. So that's a good point. So maybe at school you might see a trend, similar items regularly being littered. And glass as well. Yeah, so that can be a real hazard, can't it? Really dangerous if we're seeing glass littered.
Yes.
In this picture, you can see that there's quite a lot of single-use like plates and plastic cutlery. So that's something that's really important, because we want to reduce the amount of single-use items we have. Luckily, a few years ago, Scotland banned plastic cutlery, so we can't actually buy that anymore. But there's still a lot of surplus. There's still a lot amount of left that needs to be used up. So that's why we still see it littering.
That's lovely. Thank you, guys. You're doing so well. Can you please change to slide 17? Did you know that when you go to a bin outside and it's full or unavailable, people are far more likely to drop their litter rather than disposing their rubbish correctly, for example, taking it home? And you know that more than 2 million pieces of litter are dropped in the UK every day. Much of that litter ends up, as you know through your research, into the ocean, could have been recycled and reused to make new items. Worldwide, 10 million, and that's hard to imagine, more than the population of the people who live in London, or 100 times the biggest football stadium. is thrown away on a daily basis. And as this litter, as you know, when it's dropped, can end up blown into the beaches, into storm drains, or into rivers and canals, where it makes its way into the ocean. So this is a wonderful opportunity for you to find out what's happening in your area and to express how you feel. Show us what's happening through your art, as Joe said, through sculpture, painting, photography, video, or even poetry. Please change slide, Joe. I'm wondering if anybody wants to ask me any questions so far.
Oh, we've got a quick question from Miss Cochrane asking how long the sculptures take to make. I think we're coming on to that one, aren't we, next, Gail, about your sculpture. So we'll circle back to that question if that's okay.
Yeah, no.
So I'll move on from there. That's leads us on to this next section.
Yeah. So please change your slide 19. Yes. So how did I make my large sculpture? I was fortunate enough to find a very large piece of driftwood that you can see on the left-hand side of this slide. And it had two large side branches. And by adding small nails to the inner sides of both, I created a warp where I stretch yarn to create two looms. And I've showed you an example on the right-hand side of a girl who's got, or a person, I don't know if it's a boy or girl, who has got a piece of card, and the threads that are going down is called the warp. And then what this person does is then threading their plastics or their wool or their paper through. And that whole piece is called a loom. And it's a device, as I said, to use to weave all sorts of fabrics, cloth, and for me, it was plastics. And I hope this image is not too blurred, because I said I've downloaded that from Google. I mean, weaving, it doesn't have to be two-dimensional, or it can be three-dimensional, and it can come in all different sizes and shapes, as you can see from the samples before. And the one on the top right and the one in the middle are really very small. They're no bigger than my hand. So you could find some driftwood on the beach. You could use small pieces of card, and you could create some small pieces of work. They don't have to be like this my life-size sculpture. If you please change to slide 21. But then again, I have made some larger weavings. The one on the top left is you would regard as more of a traditional tapestry. And that, again, was the view from my house on an autumn day, where you can see lots of trees and all those beautiful autumn colours. And then the next two are more abstract. And the one on the right is it's actually got lots of twigs and branches that I've added inside and then wrapped lots of wool. So you could be really creative in the weave. If you did want to do some weaving, you could. But let's move on. I'm wondering, slide 22. Have you ever done weaving? Is that something you've done in class? No worries. Well, now you've got this perfect opportunity to give it a little try. Maybe you could ask your teacher if that's something you could do in one of your art classes or art sessions. So one is thinking about creating a large piece of work like my sculpture. For me, one has to work out on small maquettes or small scale models to give you an idea of what the finished work might look like. So rather going straight into your drawing or your painting or your poetry, you'll play around and try little ideas first. And then when you think, I'm happy with that, then you would move on to your bigger piece of work. So by making each maquette, which is I was able to, as I said, be able to work out what was going on. Now the top model is made of shells, leaves, dried grasses, and organic cotton fabrics were used. And I want you to sort of see, for me, this was representing the beaches of my childhood, of my life, my time. And the bottom one, in this model, I use plastic bags, ropes, glass, and fishing hooks, which represent what's happening today. So what happened next? Once I was happy with my maquettes, my models, I started from the top end of the driftwood, and I proceeded to create a weaving, as I said, to resemble the ideal beaches of your seaweed, of your golden sands, of those grey pebbles, as you used to, as I did as a child, strolled along a beach. And the second weaving, I then was placed on the one below, which you can see, holds small fragments, as I said, of the plastics, which, as I said, represents today covered in marine debris. Please change to slide 25. But I was still left with baskets full of large pieces of plastic and litter. So I thought, what now? And this sculpture, from thinking about what once when somebody asked a question, how long did this take? I think this sculpture probably took me about 8 months, from collecting all the debris on the beach to making the small maquettes and making sure I was absolutely satisfied with what they would look like, to then transferring and then adding those ideas onto the huge big sculpture. As I think in total it was that amount of time. When you look at the bottom of the sculpture, you'll see that I decided that I had to make a separate large loom to create different sections, like the panels of a skirt, which I sewed together with marine fishing nets, and that created a skirt around the bottom of the sculpture. And if you look at the left hand side, you'll see all the plastic bags that were used. But then I still had loads of bags of rubbish. So I needed to use all this rubbish that I had collected on my local beach to create the sculpture, displaying the impact that plastic is having on our beaches with plastic bags woven with the driftwood. And talking about recycling, on the left-hand side, this wasn't just an ordinary loom that I bought from the shop. I actually found this wooden window frame that someone had discarded in my local skip, and I thought, I can use that, I'll take it home. And what I did was then I brought all the correct utensils so I could weave and thus create a loom for my artwork. If you think about how much rubbish you throw away in a year, all that rubbish you throw in the bin to just go and buy some more junk, which you will inevitably throw away again, thus creating a cycle of waste. And this sculpture does not only make you think about the various forms of art, but it also truly makes you hopefully ponder about the cycle of our habits, the age we live in, when we buy and discard, buy and discard, buy and discard, the plastic age. Will we ever change from this? My question, will our beaches be filled with white sands and grey pebbles once again, rather than the neon blue, orange and purples of the plastics we find today? Please change slide, Jill. So as you see, as the marine debris got bigger and bulkier, a fourth section was added, because I couldn't add these large pieces to a loom. It's impossible. So I decided to make a circle around the bottom. And this large marine litter created a circle, as I said, around the base of the sculpture, and then a fifth and sixth section was added. The first one, as you can see, is a circle of seaweed, which is now dried. And the last circle is a circle of shells, which I'm hoping that one day, my wish is that we will return back to the top of the sculpture, to the pristine beaches of my childhood. The more I added the plastics, the more I added the skirt to this large, colourful woven sculpture, it reminded me of a female form reaching skywards towards the sky, asking the gods for help. I wanted my sculpture to be thought-provoking.
I was just going to say, Gail, that it's a really nice point that you made at the end there about it being thought-provoking. That's just what we're looking for the young people to do, is to think about something that will actually raise awareness and help address this issue. So that's a really nice idea there that you can take away when you do your project, to think about how you might be able to raise more awareness in your school or community about this issue.
Thank you. If you want to check, yes. So I was lucky to be part of COP26 United Nations Climate Conference, which, as you know, was held in Glasgow. And this is where we all work together, international partners, to take stock of our progress toward achieving the goals and to rally the world to step up our efforts to address the climate crisis. And I was really lucky, as I said, to be part of that. There was an organisation who was asking local artists, well, artists in Scotland, to come and show their work in Glasgow. I was also really fortunate to receive funding from Creative Scotland to show my sculpture in 6 different venues throughout Scotland. And I wanted my artwork, like many of you will show, that how recycled art promotes an important message. It will serve us as a reminder of the issues facing our planet, and serves to inspire others to change their lifestyle and reuse their items in a new, creative way. Basically, buy less.
We've got a couple of questions
good.
popped up in the chat, Gail. There's just a bit of a delay when people type.
No.
So so Abelemno Primary have asked, how many sculptures have you made, and what other sculptures have you made, or what are they made from? And they've said that they love the sculpture and that they love what it means, the meaning behind it. So yeah, how many sculptures have you made, and what other things?
Oh, hi. Well, no, that's a very valid question. I mean, I have been an artist all my life, as I was saying, since primary school. And when I went to art school, I did a fine arts degree, which I specialised in sculpture. So I have been making sculptures all my life, from your traditional figurines that you see, like the statue of David, from classical works. And then when I left, I decided I wanted to be more fine art, more abstract. So I've been making sculptures all my life. I've made hundreds, and they've ranged from plaster to bronze to plastics. I've used wood carvings, but majority of them, since leaving art school, have always been to do with recycling. And I'm really into journeys. I always, when I've gone for a walk and I've picked up a bag or a cigarette packet or a leaf or even a stone, I think, how far has this travelled? If this item could tell a story of its journey, I wonder what it would be. And then I would go off into my studio and I would explore that thought. And then I would create artwork from that. And I've, as I said, I've worked from a wide array of materials. And I'd say I've made hundreds. I've made many. Too many to count, I think. But yes, that's an interesting point and an interesting question. Thank you. I think we can jump now to, I think, question slide was any questions which you've done, so we can move on to the next one. Throughout my touring exhibition, I was able to offer art workshops and talks about the effects of plastic is having on our planet. That we are having, do you know, we're at risk of having more plastics in our ocean than fish, which was quoted by David Attenborough in COP26, and that's quite frightening. And if you can see all the little images that I've put on, these are various workshops, as I said, that I did in schools or I did in galleries, where the pupils were asked to bring something that they had found, or something that they'd brought from home. There's another one at the right-hand side, and that's when we actually went down to the beach and we collected lots of items that we'd found and we brought them back. So lots of really creative workshops that I've done whilst taking part in going round schools and galleries. The next one, thank you. My final venue last week was at the Scottish Parliament in Edinburgh. And hopefully I was able to persuade our politicians of the importance of the issue of climate change and marine litter, just as you are doing now through all your ideas and competition entries. And if you look on the left-hand side, this was sent to me by one of the Scottish Member of Parliament, Emma Roderick, and this is me on the right-hand side at the Scottish Parliament talking to her about climate change and marine litter.
We've had one question in the chat, Gail, from Ms. Cochrane, that says, what's the best beach for combing on that you've been to? But that she's saying that means that what's the worst beach? Where was the most litter?
Well, I've been living on Skye for 8 years, and there are many beaches that are terrible on Skye, but predominantly on the west coast, on the west side of the island. They can be terribly bad. But then again, I've been north of the island to Elgol, which is a really popular place with lots of tourists, and of course, sadly, lots of litter are dropped there. But yeah, sadly, lots of beaches on Skye have lots of litter. So I just want to summarise what we've talked about how recycling art promotes an important message, that it serves as a reminder of the issues facing our planet and serves to inspire others to change their lifestyle and reuse their items in a new and creative way. And I'm going to finish, and then we'll have some question and answers, on a poem that was written by Ava D from year 3, from a school called St John's Junior School in the Wirral in Merseyside, which is in Liverpool. And it's a lovely poem that will summarise my talk today. There is litter in the air. There is litter over there. There is litter on the tree. There is litter by the sea. There is litter on the sand. There is litter on my hand. There is litter by the house. There is litter on my mouse. It's smelly and it's grimy too. I wouldn't throw it. Was it you? There is litter by the school. There is litter by the pool. There is litter in my car. There is litter by the bar. It's smelly and it's grimy too. I wouldn't throw it. Was it you? There is litter by the pig. There is litter in my wig. There is litter by the duck. There's even litter in the muck. There is litter in the farm. There is litter in my palm. There is litter by the ants. There's even litter in my pants. It's smelly and it's grimy too. I wouldn't throw it. Was it you? Put your litter in the bin. Put your litter in the bin. Eventually everyone will win. I will feel happy when everyone is clean. Now I won't have to be mean. I'm sorry for shouting at you and telling you what to do. Just remember to split your rubbish up from food to a plastic cup.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Gail. That was absolutely wonderful. What a wonderful way to finish there. And you're right in that it absolutely summarises actions that we can all take to reduce litter and prevent it ending up in the sea. Thank you. So I'm just going to finish off with a couple of very brief things. So thank you so much for joining the session today. As I say, the recording will be online if you'd like to watch it back again. And if you do have any questions, please do feel free to ask your teacher to email me, and I will pass them on to Gail. And there's more information on the Marine Litter Art Competition webpage, all the resources, the video, and the information about the competition itself. Now, I was just going to say one last thing. We had a question early on about asking how to build a sculpture without using glue. Well, if you notice, Gail's sculpture didn't use any unnatural materials, okay, so that she created the loom out of cardboard and driftwood, and then the nails, and then the string. So it seems on the surface a tricky challenge to do. We're so used to using sellotape and glue and paint, but there are lots of actually other ways to do it. So do have a look about how to use biodegradable glue. There are recipes to do that. How to think about using non-plastic paints if you do want to paint your artwork. So have a think and do some research about different items and materials that you can use. Because that's the kind of thinking that we need to reduce our dependency on plastic altogether, really. So yes, thank you so much again. And there will be another live lesson in a few weeks' time that I will be sending information out towards closer to the time. So thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day. And most of you are going to break time. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.